Welcome everybody, my name is Jeff Fowler, the president of the Apartment Owners Association, and it's just wonderful to have you with us today. This is an exclusive video. It's exclusive in a couple different ways. First of all, it is part 3 of a 3-part series on the most common building code violations. This covers the entire state of California. This is not specific to LA, this covers the entire state. Just to say that one more time. And the other 2 parts of this series, along with a habitability video done by Michael Brennan, an attorney, those will become available for AOA members in the AOA member portal. And so these are exclusive in the sense that they're for members, and that this whole series and the habitability video will be in the portal shortly. That is for you as members. That is an AOA member benefit. And what our goal is that this group of apartment owners, rental property owners that's with us, those that are called AOA members, would be the most successful group of apartment owners, rental property owners here in the state of California. And I truly believe this is one way that we can help you meet that goal that we have for you. It's your goal too. It's your goal to leave a legacy. It's your goal to create wealth through rental property, and we want to help you get there. Make it easier, make your time make it more efficient so that you have more time to do the things that you really want to do. And anyway, so it's great to have you with us. Just want to mention that this is live right now, and there is closed caption on Facebook. So if you need that, you can get that. And if you're watching this after the fact, then there's definitely closed caption available for you already. And I do want to highlight just that we have a new contractors and vendors search engine. So if you go to aoausa.com, and there's a contractors and vendors tab, if you click on that, when you type in your category of whatever you need, it will ask you for permission to know your location. It will use that only to deliver you results that are the closest to you. So give that a try. That's something that we put together. And our vendors know that if they're messing with you, they're messing with me. We take it personally when they mess with AOA members. So if there's ever an issue, bring that to us, and they know that. And we try to mediate, and we can't force anybody to do anything, but that's one thing that we do try to do. And then also, if you're watching this video for the first time, you're live with us and you're not an AOA member, you've never been one, there is a money-back guarantee for you. Within the first year, we'll fully refund your money if you're not happy with your membership. And we have 2 in-person events coming up, one in San Diego on March 7th, and this is a property rights roundtable in San Diego, and we would love to see you there if you're in San Diego County. And then also we have the trade show that's coming up. Here we are in March, and April 19th, it's less than 2 months away now, if you can believe it. We have the AOA trade show at the LA Convention Center, and if you're looking to up your game with your rental property, then you'll want to go there, because we just have a loaded slate of speakers. We're going to have over 150 vendors there. You're going to learn a lot and walk away with your questions answered. And anyway, so we want to invite you to that. And then today at 1 p.m. we also have another live stream about an attorney will be speaking about the LA eviction moratorium and how to recover rent, and so rent collections. And so that's going to be another one that you'll want to listen to, just because with everything, with the cement drying, so to speak, a lot of these questions need to be answered. And so really glad that we have that content for you at this time. All right. And then next week on the live stream, we have a Bay Area legal Q&A with Richard Beckman. So definitely, if you're in the Bay Area, you'll want to tune in for that one. And that's something that we're doing every month. We're doing that for San Diego, we're doing that for LA, and we're doing that for the Bay Area. 3 different areas that we're trying to cover there and address your questions. And in all of those areas, we're covering the whole California as well, but they're usually a little more unique to those specific areas. All right, and then you may have missed there was a 2023 top tax secrets, tax tips. You may have missed that, so go to the YouTube. AOA USA is the name of the channel. If you go there, you'll find that video about the top tax secrets, as well as other videos that we've done. And so, yeah, so this event is brought to you by AOA Digital. That's AOA's property management software. We acquired a company a few years back, and we've retooled it to work with AOA tenant screening, to have the AOA rental application in there, and make it easy for applicants to sign that, and then make it easy for that to integrate with the AOA tenant screening and everything else. And anyway, so that's something that is available for you. It does do the online rental payments, of course, and so that for a limited time, it's 6 months free for AOA members, and so you can take advantage of that as well as an AOA member. And our speaker today, I think we've been blowing his phones up, so he does have a new phone system now. If you've tried to call him in the past and haven't been able to get through, well, he's ready for you now. And this guy has been in this industry for a long period of time, probably 40 years, 30 years, 40? Yeah. And he's a graduate of the Southern California Institute of Architecture. He is a licensed general building contractor. He worked with the LA Housing Code Enforcement. He actually helped set that whole program up. And he was anyway, so he is more than qualified to speak to this issue. He's an expert in the field. And again, this is an exclusive not just for AOA members, but this is exclusive in the sense that our speaker will not give this talk somewhere else. You won't find him speaking on this. The guy who created the code enforcement for the city of Los Angeles, he created that program. You won't find him anywhere else except here. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Zoran Windrich.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zoran, and I hope that you out there watching this are going to take a little mindful notes for yourself. And my whole objective when we go through these photos, they're photos of actual violations that were conducted during an inspection. Some of them have more things than one visible, and I put some arrows in the slide to show you I'm focusing here and there. But there's also, why am I doing this? After doing this for, I guess, 25 years for the city from code enforcement and compliance, I'm starting to notice a repetition of violations. And it's almost like nobody was paying attention before, or the work that got done by someone that wasn't quite experienced enough to do it correctly. So that's something that I've seen. And one more thing, a violation to me and a violation to somebody else is based on knowledge. So those of you that have been inspected by housing or other inspectors, and they did not make an observation of a particular item, and somebody else after that did, then that should tell you that it's an opinion-based inspection. Someone with that experience would make that note or not make that note. Now, what I've done here is those photos that were taken during my inspections, I'm going to make a note what else I saw and how that triggers something else. And for you to be mindful even beyond violation or no violation, how do you prepare and deal with it later? So I'm going to go through the photos of the specific violations and then get into some other very interesting things I would call conversions, okay? So this is a photo of a vent above a stove that is corrugated. These have to be slim, straight metal walls. They have to be connected and tight, sealed at the top and sealed at the bottom. As you can see, it's easy to install. Home Depot will sell it, but it's not code approved for LA. Other cities may not care, but remember, this is the systematic code enforcement program. So it still needs work because the connection isn't sealed. You have attic space above the cabinet and below the roof that has access right on top of your food. It's not a good idea to do. And then here we go. After you look at the seal on top, look at the seal on the bottom, now it's so-called approved. You may look at it and see the walls are changed. They're metal and they're flat. So that makes a big difference. If you don't want to deal with that, they have direct vent heaters, vents that are in place right above the stove that is acceptable. They're UL approved. You can install those and not have to deal with all of the compliance with the venting and so forth. Now, if you have one of these in the era of 50s and the 60s, this vent in the bathroom is supposed to bring air out. Usually when there's no window in the bathroom, you're required to provide a vent. In this case, it was not working. Turned on, it wasn't working. So maybe the motor went out, don't know. But one way to check if it's operational, if it's not clogged with a lot of dust, take a tissue paper from the bathroom and then place it as the fan is working, place it right on top of the fan. And if it sucks and stays, that means the fan is strong enough to draw air out. Sometimes you hear them making a lot of noise, but they're not taking air out, which is what needs to happen. Now, on the roof, this is a vent from a bathroom or a kitchen, but they have to have a screen. And the reason being, because you have all kinds of possibilities, birds and vermin and bugs and so forth, that can fall right through into your house and right above your stove, and you'll eat it and you won't even know it. This is about exiting. Okay, exiting is a big deal. Nobody pays attention because I know once the tenant moves in, you don't want to bother them. They don't want to bother you. The only time this is really of importance, if there's an accident and then the party that got hurt will ask about clearances. Did you inspect? Did you let the tenant know? Those questions will be raised by the attorney on the other side, and that's when you are going to be answering a question that you don't want to answer. Have you inspected that property? So if you do these biannual inspections of your property, including the second floor out of the norm or in the back units, to see if there is a obstruction possibility or if there's hoarding going on, you want to address that in writing for sure. And so inside, you don't want to go inside the unit, but if you do go inside, and you should, take a look at these passageways, egress corridors they're called. It's very important, only when there's a fire, right? But that's when it counts the most. So in your mind, figure 3 feet wide passageway from anywhere in the apartment to the door to get out of the apartment. That's what you have to keep in mind. And look, in writing, photo, those are all valuable documentation that you would need to have to protect yourself. Now, if you don't go inside these units, and the tenant of this unit created some steps and storage combination, these steps are not approved. They're too steep, too narrow, and they're not deep enough. So what do? Tell them to remove it. They can't do that. Or you want to be nice and you want to get this approved, you may not, because steps need to be a certain angle, certain length, connected structurally, and sitting on support, not just on a ceiling from a unit up above. It has to be structurally supported. So think about it long and hard, or don't go in and then be surprised when something happens. So maybe cover that in the lease or something. So this is the other side. It's kind of a nice little cubby to sleep, extra room, friend comes over. I mean, I understand. It's convenient and it fits and it's short term. It's only when it gets, prolonged, there's no end, and something happens. That's when you're going to be answering those questions you don't want to be asked. So one of the warning devices is smoke detectors. They're a little problematic because people tend to install them not knowing where to put them and where do they go, and should they be operating, should they be batteries, should they be hooked up to your power of the apartment. If it's a battery operated smoke detector from an old house, old apartment, old studio is okay. However, if it's a duplex, 2 units on a lot, or connected to one structured duplex, all the power must be supplied to all the smoke detectors for every smoke detector in the complex. So this is a battery only operated one. And the reason you can tell, when you look at it from the bottom, if it doesn't have a glow light, a green light, then it's battery operated, such as this one. There's a button you push, and it's only when it's activated that the other thing lights up to see. So if you live in a house, there's only one house on the lot, and it's old, yes. But new houses today have these in all the rooms. So here's something about a fan. Okay, fans are convenient because people usually take a light that's in the middle of the room and they put a fan. Sure, makes sense. Ventilates, airflow, and it's really good. The only problem, the smoke detector that was there from the beginning can't stay, in this case, where it's located. The reason being is that if this fan is working and there's smoke in the apartment, that smoke detector would never detect the smoke and would not sound the alarm. That's the point. So by code, that smoke detector needs to be installed outside of the circumference of the belt, the fan that twirls around, outside of that mark. So 3 feet away from that center is where it needs to be. And well, let's see, what's the other one? Okay, so we'll go beyond that. Now, if this is the case of one of your apartments because they either smoke or cook and there's a lot of smoke being created, then, this is one of those that obviously it needs to be installed and operating. This is hardwired inside of that. So these hardwired smoke detectors have a little 9-volt battery. Those 9-volt batteries are sitting there, only there for providing power to the smoke detector when there's no power to the building. They need to be operating. Sometimes they will sound an alarm just to let you know that, hey, the battery might be low. Check it and change it. Now, carbon monoxide is one of those things that recently started to be required, and it's only required like per floor outside the bedroom, and they can be battery operated. They don't have to be hardwired. But that smoke detector next to that is an old type. If it works, it's okay. You don't have to replace it with the new ones, battery backup and all that. If it works. If it doesn't work, if it sounds funky, not clear sound, not sharp, replace it. It's the best option. So the distance on a ceiling from a wall, from the edge of the smoke detector, should be 6 inches. Because they say 12 inches, which means on the other side of the smoke detector, it would be not approved, because what happens in smoke, they've done studies and tests, if there is smoke in a room, it twirls around on the corner of the wall and the ceiling, and that twirling doesn't allow the smoke detector enough time to sense that there's actual smoke to sound the alarm. So they said, move it over. What do you say about this? Okay, so everybody's got extension cords. the Housing Department Code Enforcement says you can have extension cords, one, but if you have multiple cords leading to multiple devices, it's really not a good thing. Why? They become a trip hazard. They become overused for one circuit, and the circuit will be loaded, overloaded, heat up, and possibly catch on fire. This is one of those reasons why you don't want to do that. So this is, I've seen them much worse, but this is just to give you an idea of how many extension cords are you plugging into one power source. Speaking of power sources, so this is an existing shower, right? So the shower was installed with a switch for the room. So the question is, if this was, multiple apartments and one had this installation of the switch, it would be a violation because it wasn't designed like that. But in this particular case, it was built like this. So comparing it to some of the other switches in bathrooms, have they also been installed in this way, in this particular configuration? It's not a good idea to have electricity in a shower, right? So if you put a curtain, if the curtain wraps around the tub and it's vertically protecting or separating the light switch from the water source so it's not splashing onto the switch, yeah, you could say that could work, and it's going to have to work because it was designed that way. But I just don't like the idea of having electricity in a shower. If your hands are wet, you put your finger there and there might be drippy water inside. So I would really consider moving that somewhere else if it's possible, or outside the room, not inside the room. It's just a bad or invitation for possible trouble. So now we're going to talk about cabinets. Everybody's got cabinets. These cabinets are obviously old. You can see the number and coats of paint that we have been applied over and over all the hinges. Now these hinges, they don't operate that well when they have paint inside the hinge itself. The doors don't close, and everything is pushed towards the center, and for it to be acceptable and pass is that the door needs to close fully and stay closed when you let it go. That means the latch inside the cabinet needs to be clear of paint, because once it's painted, it doesn't function the same. And the latch on the door and the snap that holds it on the frame is not going to hold that cabinet shut. So be very mindful. If you're going to paint it, then you should paint around it, or in this case, I would replace all the hinges and wouldn't even think twice. Now, this is a latch for a window. It's a double hung. And again, paint was applied, and you can see, it's been there probably 3 different times, maybe 30 years or 40 years, and then it doesn't work properly. It just doesn't function the way it was designed. When you turn the latch that is supposed to stay in a closed position, it's probably the window itself that needs to, be free of this paint to be able to function properly. And then you have issues such as termites. If you say you want this to go away, and this would be a problem with an inspector looking at this job. So if the paint is gone, the droppings from the termites are removed, and all the holes are sealed, and you seal the window, nobody's going to say that you have a problem here. They're going to look the other way, and everything looks normal. The problem that you're going to have, if this window is 40% damaged, meaning that the structure of the window has been eaten by termites, that's where the problem is. And you need to check with a little device or a pen, feeling around. Is it hollow behind the paint? Because you can tell when you tap it, or you take a device or a screwdriver or anything, just to see, is this paint or is this painted wood underneath the paint? And the reason you would know, termites will only eat wood. They're not going to eat your paint. So they leave the surface alone. They have one little entry hole, and that they use to get in and out, and then they leave everything else alone. If it's substantially damaged, meaning 30% of the frame in my book is damaged, then I would definitely consider replacing it. And now let's talk about the inside and potential problems. Okay, this doesn't look like a big deal, right? It's the gap between the floor and the tub. Not a big deal, but if you look closer, there's water there that goes in and continues to supply moisture to the substrate, which is wood, plywood, and flooring, which is frame wood. So you have all this wood and water, not a good mixture. So this is an easy fix to clean it smooth and caulk it again, and it'll stay closed for a long period of time. But it has to be maintained because obviously the floor moves, tub may move, and that creates separation again. Now, your wood window, okay, this one is already bad, so they fix it with a piece of metal. Yeah, it's broken in its original intended use. This is a repair that is not going to work, okay? The window is broken structurally. It doesn't function anymore. And for you to open it up and down, that's going to loosen. It's not going to hold. And this is not a fix for a window. A fix for this type of window would take it out, strip it of all the paint, or just replace it with another one. It'd be a lot faster and cheaper to replace that particular window. And then if your window sits on a windowsill like this, so this sill hasn't been painted. This is supposed to be on a vertical side for easy travel of the window, not at the bottom where all the water from all the rain land and moistens all the wood below that. This wood is already rotten, is already gone. So this frame has to have a new sill for sure, unless it's solid. If it's solid, then it would be prime and paint and keep it going. Now you also have, how is a unit maintained, right? Well, a unit is maintained the way the tenant wants to maintain it, right? So you can't really walk in and tell this gentleman that he can't have a train set in his living room. Look, if it's safe, if he wants to see a train set in his living room, he can do that, as long as it's not endangering, the rest of the building. Now, getting back to observations that you can barely notice. Yeah, this looks like a pretty new situation, clean, tile on the walls, tub is cast iron, it's tight. Something happened at that little corner. Tubs are cast iron. Exposed to water will rust. That rust spot will expand and expand. And this chip is a violation, believe it or not, of the plumbing code. So now to fix that chip is to use material that's compatible to steel. And that's an epoxy. You're not going to be dinged for a violation if you put it and somebody looking at it closely and sees that it's sealed, but the paint doesn't match the finish of the tub. Nowhere it says that it has to match the color. It has to be smooth and tight. That's it. So you can use a red dye if you want. Of course, maybe not, but if you want to, you could. You could argue that. If you have time to argue, then you can do that. But I think you have plenty of other problems that you have to deal with. So don't argue with inspectors. So this one, okay, so the toilet is cracked. It's cracked all the way through. This isn't a surface crack. It's cracked all the way through. That means, it's like two lines. So the outside frame of this bowl is damaged. This should be replaced because a little earthquake, a little kick, the whole thing can separate. And that's what's coming next on this particular one. Then you have the walls on the left, the wall on the right, the tile on the floor. It's the same situation. If you see these gaps where it's maybe mopped to be cleaned, and this mop with moisture and cleaning solvents whatever, go right inside the corners and the walls. And that's a problem for the building. And it's a problem for the wall, problem for the floor. So having a tight seal, I think, is really important. And when you have a tight seal, then the moisture doesn't collect in that particular corner. So when you have a situation where maybe this bathroom had a tub in it, and it would have been fine in that case. But to put a shower, because people like showers instead of tubs, then you have this problem where the wall is now protected from water with paint. And a wall paint is not a waterproofing material to be used in a shower. You just can't do that. And it's not going to last. I'll show you some more how this particular, so the solution here, of course, tile it all the way up. The tile doesn't have to match flush on the tile on the bottom, but it can be a tight seal that you can close it and then caulk it, and it'll be tight and go all the way up to the ceiling. That would be if you needed to have this, and it wouldn't create the problems that you already have going on. So this situation is installing a sink. It's mounted, screwed to the wall. It's good, but the kick 45-degree support on the side is not fitting. The sink has settled. Now you have a problem. And sinks that are like this are ready to fall, and they're dangerous. So if you see them at an angle, level them out, and the support that holds it on the sides would be something that it would be important to be solid. Could be steel, could be wood, but it needs to be painted just so to protect it. Now you see where the trap goes in the wall, that gap can't be there. So they have devices that are metal that you can just cover that whole gap, and it'll prevent any sort of insect to go in and out through that opening of the wall cavity into the usable living space that you have here. Something pretty interesting when you have sinks that are 60 plus years old, they start rusting right in the opening for the overflow. This is a violation. I'm sorry, I know it looks cool, shows its age, but it's a problem. So it's not accepted. And if you are doing your twice a year inspection and you notice this, well, I'd go to the maintenance guy and I'd say, get some backing and secure this holder for the toilet paper to the frame so it's flush and it doesn't do this. And of course the painter has been there after him and he kind of touched it up, but paint is not going to solve this problem. It needs to be connected to the wall and secured, solid. And now look at this. Nice clean tub, clean tile. It started to rust right in the corner. And again, it's one of those where it's got old caulking and it's got damaged cast iron tub, and it's got a gap between the wall and the tub. So it has to be cleaned. You have to remove all this and get it down to where you're down to the tile and down to the metal, and then caulk it. Hopefully the caulking around that edge will close that whole gap, and then you won't have to be looking at this. And if you're concerned about having a good clean finish, and then you hire somebody, hey, can you give me a new finish in my sink? Yeah, I can do that. Well, that's what you're going to get. They painted everything, the brass on the bottom and the sink that's being used, the paint that isn't epoxy perhaps, I don't know. Whatever it was, it needs to be removed and done properly. The problem with doing it right, the sink has to be empty. The sink has to be clean, all the old paint removed, and then any holes in the sink can be filled, and then the whole thing would be sprayed epoxy paint. And then it can't be used, whatever, 24 hours or something. So that means when you walk out of the apartment and you leave it with a brand new finish and it's a kitchen sink or a tub, how do you know that they're not going to use it? You say don't use it, but not saying that they won't use it, but they might use it. And if they use it, you're going to have failure within a short period of time. So it's money down the drain as far as I'm concerned. And if you look on the right side of the counter, right around the sink, they not only did that to the sink, but they also did it to the countertop. Sprayed on finish. Unfortunately, it doesn't provide a tight seal. Gaps still exist, and now you have this problem where the counter and the sink will need to be redone. And if you redo that, it's cheaper to tear everything out and put something new. Same thing was applied here on the tub itself. Now, pretty clean sink, recently installed. Problem here is the gap. So, you know, it splashes, water gets behind the sink, seal that, caulk it tight, but, you know, make sure it's cleaned, oil-free, and then caulk it. And then it'll last and be serviceable much longer. So what do we have here? Well, there's a light. Yes, there's a light. And what's missing is the cover for the light. In other words, the exposed wires and the bulb that's underneath that dome is not supposed to be visible. So the dome's supposed to be in place. There's even a shaft in the middle to screw it. This is old type, very inexpensive, but it needs the dome. It needs to be protected, and nobody wants to see that. So this is, homeowners like to do things on their own, and I don't blame them, and it's cheaper and so forth. So if you have a used tankless water heater, such as this, and installed, it needs to be installed legitimately correct, meaning screwed, secured, and this is not necessary because the brackets on the back hook to screws on the back that mount to studs. It can stay like that. This is like, okay, you know the guy was winging it, trying to figure it out. So now that the tankless is going to have to go away from here, and the place that he wants to put it at is over here, well, the problem with that, a little forethought, a little advanced thinking, how big is this water heater going to be? And if it's outside, it needs to be protected with a frame. That frame is going to overlap and cover the window. So whatever project you do, think it through. Don't let someone jump on it because you asked him, can you do it? And he says, yes, I can do it. And he told you a fixed price. So for him to think and do the job for that same price is not productive. They're not going to think. They're going to just do. And they're going to say, you told me to do it. So I did it as you told me. I installed it. End of story. By the way, that's not something that I would do, okay? No, don't do that. And then we're good. Okay. Yeah. So in older apartments that were designed and built to have tubs, not showers, well, this is one of those that kind of migrated to a shower. New windows, aluminum windows, sure, okay, that works. But that frame around the window, that's all wood exposed, so they plastered over it and they painted it. Again, paint is not a waterproofing material. Having wood in a shower, no. Aluminum window and rain, and shower, water is fine. But it's everything that's around there that becomes a problem. So, putting, a frame that had a nice little frame, wooden frame, being used in a shower, that becomes a problem. So the idea here is, well, let's cover it with cement type material, maybe Fix-All or something, and then let's paint it, and that'll just go away. It never goes away. In fact, it just lingers. It just gets worse and worse. And this wood is just, every year it's getting worse. At some point, everything will have to be removed all the way around the window and then rebuilt with ceramic tile and sealed and sloped so it doesn't drain in the window well and it drains back in the shower to do it right. Maybe it would have been better not to even make that a shower, right? So here is the beginning. Okay, this one was probably a change out to a shower a little bit later. So where's the problem? Well, here's the sill and the jamb. Right, that's where it actually begins. Water sits in the corner and mildew develops and it grows right in that. And when you have that, it just accelerates dilapidation quickly. So now, yeah, you see how it made much sense, but now with a shower added to this tub, it becomes a little bit more of a problem. And maybe this one, I don't remember if this one had a shower head or not. Maybe it didn't. But anyway, wood in a shower or a tub enclosure is okay if it's a tub. And why you don't want this to be, a condition that you have and support and maintain? Because of this. The tenant can claim that they're not feeling good. And, for whatever reason, they're feeling worse over time. They talk to friends, they talk to people, they read, information. What is, I may have mold in my unit. Well, that's pretty devastating if you have those kind of windows and you have those kind of conditions where mold can develop. Nobody knows that it's mold until it's tested. Well, this is one of those. We used to be in this business to test what it was and what kind of mold is it, and get a report and find the quantity within that test tube, how many spores were there per square meter or square inch, I think it was. It doesn't matter. If there's mold, it's a problem, and they're breathing it, and it's really an issue with having mold in an apartment that you're renting. Well, a little bit about fire protection. If your building has these fire extinguishers located, maybe 3 or 4 in a hall or something, make sure that they're actively maintained and that every year there's an inspection for them. Just make sure that they work and that they're there, because that is the way that a building was designed to deal with fires, and that is part of the solution. A problem that you also need to worry about is how your property looks like from the outside. All right? So maybe this is a tenant that has been there a long time, and you appreciate him, and they paid rent for a long time. But this is a nuisance, and it's a problem, and it brings other problems: vermin, rats, insects, and it's just looking at it. Is that someplace you want to go and live at, or passing by this site to go to your apartment? Well, that's what people have to do if there's others in the area, like in a parking, converting whatever because it's convenient. This area is your responsibility, and I mean that in a good way. You can tell them not to store those things. You can tell them to remove them because they're dangerous, they invite trouble, and it makes the whole thing look worse. And that's not what you want, okay? So, and they can find storage somewhere else. They can rent a garage and move all their junk into that garage and not in their carport. You might be thinking, I feel bad for them. They had trouble, somebody passed. I mean, those are important things to consider, but ultimately, that building needs you to be looking very appealing and a nice place to go to that you call home. So you want to go home. And if you live there, you don't want to see that. That's my point. Carports, garages, everybody's a handyman these days, and we all have to improvise things, but for your garage, your carport to look like this, visible. Okay, if it was behind closed doors, maybe, but depends how it looked. But if this was visible from the outside under a carport, definitely clean it up. Yeah, it's just, or if you're in some sort of business where, you do, roofing, and this is extra that you have, you don't want to throw it away, of course. Who wants to do that? But so you'll put it somewhere where you're going to be looking at it, and everybody else will be looking at it too. Private garage, door closed, they can put whatever as long as it's not flammable. Something that's paint and chemicals that can ignite and explode, things like that are bad, but they can do whatever they want if they have a garage. How about getting one of these? Sure, you can get one of those, get the right size so it's not oversized, and you can store it with all your lovely stuff and their stuff, and that's a solution to that problem. Now a little bit about drainage. And I say drainage is a big issue in time, because when water isn't draining today somewhere, it's puddling. Okay, so it drains out and evaporates and it's gone and it's no longer a problem, right? Well, yes, in this slide, a shower drain on a driveway in a flat area is only anticipating that it floods. And why put a drain there? I don't know. Somebody decided, I have a drain line here, I'll put a drain right here. This drain isn't serving much of a purpose. It's on high ground, number one. There's moisture around it, and so it's kind of elevated. A drain is supposed to be at the lowest point in that area, so everything gathers into it to drain. If you're going to do it, you do it for the purpose that it's designed, to take water somewhere else. But here, look at the next to the structure, there's a gap of maybe 2 inches that was previously earth or some maybe frame or something. I don't know what that was. And then they filled it with cement. That fill of cement between the house and the driveway or the other concrete is not a seal. This isn't waterproofed. It just looks like the barrier is there. But concrete is like a sponge. It absorbs water, and it's going to continue to absorb water. And it, through capillary action, will travel, and it'll go to the part that's going to be sucking all the moisture out of it, which is the earth on the other side of that piece of concrete. So you really want to put it in a specific place where, and this isn't a specific place because this is right next to the crawl access into the crawl space underneath the house. But to put a drain there, okay, it just makes no sense. It's not a good place for it. And, the plants, the weeds, like it because it happens to be a low spot and it didn't drain, but it watered the vegetation in that little cavity. What can I tell you? It's not a very functional thing. So do-it-yourselfers, if you hire somebody and you ask them, do you know how to put drains? Well, the next question should be, do you know where to put drains? Where do you put them? Well, and get involved. Don't let someone else decide because they may not know. And the answer that you might get or the installation could be one of these. So, yeah, just give it some thought. And if you were going to, do something else, like build an enclosure for a washer and dryer, okay, so this is not waterproofed, okay? And it's already mildewing, maybe got mold. It's outside, so is it bad? Well, it just looks terrible. But it could be that this could have been done a little better and that it's maybe plywood instead of, the strand board. It's not, and, this is going to, it's already bad and you can't do anything about it. So take the doors off and just replace it. It's just not a good thing. So if you're going to do something, do it with some thought do it with some intelligence. Like if you're going to put a lighting your tree in your backyard, and there's a big tree in the front, you want to hang Christmas ornaments, you want to plug it in, and it might work. Well, do it with correct method. Do it safely. Electricity and water, not a good combination. And doing it with waterproof boxes, waterproof cabling, everything is really okay. So I'm really happy to see this. What I'm not happy is to see this. So this is a base of a column that has been neglected for a very long time. And this has rotted through the entire column. So the whole bottom of this 6 by, 8 column that's supporting the roof is been chewed away at the bottom all the way around. And so what do you really do? You have to open it up to see how far has it gone, can it be fixed, and what method. This is where you would need to get someone with some intelligence that can solve this without tearing it down and patching it, with Bondo or something, and then paint it because it all looks beautiful. All right. So again, doing home projects is good. You can be, quite innovative and provide extra work, extra area to put work in or sleep in. Here, a room was added right below the power line, and it's bad. Why? Because these power lines sometimes have insulation around them, and sometimes it's bare wire. So if you're over here on the roof, whether it's this roof or whether a ball fell on the roof and you're climbing up there to get the ball, any wrong move touching those wires could terminate your life. So this is not something that you want to play with. And if you're going to do an addition, certainly don't do it right under power lines. Okay, that definitely not a good thing to do. And so even though the addition is manageable, if this was to be legalized, and by the way, it wasn't going to be legalized, it was just too much effort, it was too close, so it was removed. But the power line would have to be moved to another location, so it didn't create that distance, shortening of distance between the roof and the power line. So if you're going to do something, like you're going to improve what you already have, and let's say the building's 70 years old, 60 years old, like in this case, you are encroaching on a very limited space. The distance between the building and the fence is called a side yard. And it's typically considered as an egress, get away, get out of here, it's a fire, we got to go to the street, okay? Anything like this 30-inch stoop with steps, how did that get there? Well, it got there because somebody had a bright idea to put a door or sliding door in lieu of a window. So this window that used to be there became a door, and now the door has a landing and steps to visit your backyard. Well, that's a problem, encroachment. And that has to be addressed, or don't invite any inspectors into your side yard. So you look at this slide with steps to an area less than 2 feet wide. Okay, I don't have to tell you that general law of design and general law for accessibility and egress isn't less than 24 inches, typically 36 inches, just as a big general rule. But when you look at this, and this was something that was already done, trying to pass as what's wrong with this. We have access, we have stairs, we can go all the way around. Yeah, there's no permit for that. So even though this is kind of a big thing, you can see that it was created after the fact for convenience, you can do that. But how about one of these? When you look at a brand new redo, renovation, and you look at this, okay, so looks pretty good to me, right? Well, these are steps that we use consciously and subconsciously all the time. One of the things that the code requires is that these steps are high, so many inches. There's rules if it's a length and a width, a length and a height, but they cannot be any more different from the lowest to the highest, no more than 3/8 of an inch. 3/8. That's a little over 1/4 of an inch difference between the lowest and the tallest. So, and I know this is almost 2-inch difference in one of these. So it is not something that you can see, but it's something that people, as they use steps, consciously don't adjust 2 inches between one step and the next. It's a trip hazard. If they fall, you as the owner will be sued, because all they have to do is to verify that the height was built by you more than 3/8 of an inch. So it's something you want to be very cautious of. So, when you look at these tuck under parking situations, and this is pre the retrofit, because today's retrofit, they have the strong columns and they have the beams and have a grade beam, stabilizing that end of the apartment building. That looks cool. Nothing specific. Cars are there. I don't see junk. Yeah, you kind of move on to the next inspection. Then you get to a situation like this. Okay, so the building on the left was used as a 2-bedroom, and it existed for over 30 years. So if you're a buyer and you like the area and you see a 2-bedroom and you don't know what's required and what's not required, the fact that it was there for 30 years kind of gave you a one leg up, right? Because now you know, because you looked into it. Except it can't be there. That's the problem. This thing, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, decked out, had to be totally removed. Why? It doesn't have a permit. It's too close, too far, too big. It just, you name it. And so you can't keep something that is not to code, number one. And number two, you eventually have to do something. We're going to build another structure in the back legally, and it's going to have all the room that this owner wanted to have. Unfortunately, he had to go through this series of work and effort. He did it all himself with a helper. So very sad, The finishes were beautiful, granite, everything was awesome. So, and then you have situations like this one. This is an apartment building that had multiple units, and the steps going up to the attic was something else. Excuse me. It was something else. Usually, we don't go where units are not located, but this was a purchase. So the owner asked for us to look into this inspection and go join him. So what we found is that the attic had been occupied. The attic had been occupied, and the attic had been used, has been rented and used by people. This was 4 units up in the attic, 4 different living conditions. People had their little bed and a little tent, and they had a little cooking community kitchen. All illegal, all unsafe, all God knows what could happen at any time. And that's what they have occupied the space with. and they were renting it. So some of these situations we end up in, we have to go and inspect, and we just never know what we're going to get into. And my staff doesn't like going to some of these places. So this is one of those unpermitted conversions of a basement now. And Bruna did not, you want me to go in there? Yeah, it was just funny. So before you make an effort, spend money to do something that you think will benefit you in the future, study a little bit. Find out, can you do that legally? Call around, call us, call somebody. Look, what possibilities exist? Can you do it legally? I wouldn't do it illegally. Why? Because you could be like that client that we saw that had the whole 2-bedroom house that he improved upon, probably cost him $80,000, $90,000, had to tear it down. What a waste. That cost him money, and he's going to have to do it again to get it back up legally. So it never pays to take a shortcut, because you're going to be caught, you're going to have to do it again, and you have to pay twice to do the same job. So we don't want you to do that. We want you to be informed. You belong to a great organization. They will put you together with people that have answers for you, or just read all their brochures, and AOA is there for you. This is why I'm doing this with AOA, because they're thinking ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Zoran.
Uh-huh.
We thought, give us a minute here to adjust back. Thank you so much. I think that, people were bargaining for maybe 4 different common code violations, and you gave us 80, I think.
Yeah, there are 80 slides.
So that was pretty amazing, folks. You won't see that very often. It's on. It's on. Are we good? Thank you. And anyway, hopefully we got our volume taken care of. And anyway, so amazing stuff there, really, really amazing. And there were 2 other videos, like we said, there were 2 other videos that he's done that we've recorded. Those were in person. And then there's also the Michael Brennan habitability seminar that we recorded. And so those things, we're going to make those available for you as AOA members in the AOA member portal shortly, hopefully really soon. And I thought that this was really important, just because these are the things that trip rental property owners up. And so I just don't want you to be tripped up. I want you to be able to run free and enjoy your rental property.
Yeah.
And these are some of these things. It's like, it's such a no-brainer. It's like, it's obvious, everyone knows that. But what I've seen is that sometimes just the obvious needs to be stated, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. And anyway, so I hope that this has been beneficial for you. We have questions, we'll take them. And so here we go. We have Armando. Is there a new code that requires smoke detectors on all sleeping quarters, and they have to go on if one turns off?
So the question is, if you have multiple smoke detectors, the newer ones are connected with the others. So I think there's like 2 or 3 bank over, meaning 2 or 3 smoke detectors run at the same time. They don't let the whole floor, alarm like that if it's in a particular unit. So 2 or 3 connected, the newer ones. The old ones do not relay, and they're not wired to do that. So the old ones, meaning buildings in the 50s and the 60s, individually turn on, sound the alarm, and they keep going until you turn it off or the smoke goes away. Yeah.
Great. Where should carbon monoxide alarms be placed? Great question.
Very good. On the floor of the bedroom. If the bedroom is, one part of the house, it could be in the hallway outside of the bedroom. It doesn't need to be in the bedroom. You want it sort of outside the room in a hallway that is commonly exposing that whole floor to, and it's battery operated. Yeah, anywhere outside.
All right, that detector is in the wrong place when it was installed originally before the ceiling fan was installed.
Correct. Yeah, that smoke detector, I'm assuming if they legalize the fan, they would have to move the smoke detector, and it goes outside of that circle by 3 feet of that circle of the fan, where the fan is circulating. Go out 3 feet away from that circumference and put your smoke detector there.
Great. All right, code states it needs to be over the door header or within 18 inches of the door. The smokes are not supposed to be in the center of the room. Why? Maybe smoke detectors, yeah.
The smoke detector can be on the wall within 12 inches of the ceiling, anywhere in the room. It doesn't have to be on the ceiling. So if you put it above the jamb of the door, you can put it. I was reading. Sorry, you're over here, and I was reading over there. So it's like anywhere in the room, on the wall, below 12 inches down, right anywhere in the room. So if there's room above the door and you have enough of a gap, it can be there. It can be on the wall to the left or right, or the ceiling.
And maybe I think they're probably thinking about that one with the fan and.
Yeah, the
Probably
fan's a little
after
confusing.
he may have written that one in before you explained the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we'll go rapid fire through these. Do I need a permit to replace a 75-gallon water heater in an apartment?
Yes. Yes, sir. Permits required. Okay?
In my experience, painting, coating kitchen sinks will not last. Knives, forks drop on the finish and chip it immediately. Would you agree?
When I read that, coating kitchen sinks, well, yeah, but not like not finish and chipping. Yes,
Yeah.
totally. It's going to chip, and it's a bad thing. It's already in violation, so it needs to be something solid. Granite is a really good one. Some of these, the flat surfaces that are composites are also really good. They're inexpensive. You can choose color, and it's better than tile, and it's better than Formica.
All right, and sometimes there are code inspectors that tell you to do things that aren't necessarily in the code, and we've addressed that in some of the other sessions that we did. Here, Lori, I had a inspector make me remove all items from a closed garage. He said a garage is for vehicles only, nothing more. I kept my ladder and tools for repairs. He made me remove them. Is that the code?
Well, here's how the code reads about garages. Garages are to park a vehicle. You can also store in your garage anything that you want that is not flammable, like, paint, chemicals, things like that. So this inspector that you're talking about didn't really follow the law, because the law says readily available to park a car in. That means whatever you put in your garage in a box, you're not in violation if that box stays there, because you don't want to use it as a garage at the moment, and the car's outside in front of the garage. You can do that. So this inspector telling you, hey, get all the stuff out of here as if you're going to park your car moments later, it's none of his business. So no.
Great. Can you, Claudia, can you provide the corresponding codes that apply to the situation referenced today via email so that we have that? Oh boy, that's a big. I would like the California codes, and if you can point out where I can find them from the city.
The California Residential Code is the one that I would use. It covers all your plumbing, your electrical, your uses, your distances, your gaps. You can look it up online. The California Residential Code. It applies to the state of California. Now, LA is under that. So they have their own little thing, but they can't impose a more stringent requirement than what the state of California. They can play around with the others that the state allows them to, but the state is what governs, and that's your stronghold. Okay.
Great. Okay, next question, Armando again. Are California building codes free? Okay, same kind of question. Freely accessible online or in a library?
Yes. Yes, you'll find it online, or you can go to the library.
Yeah.
I paid for mine. You can go buy one and have it next to your bed. Good reading material before you go to bed. But if you want to go to sleep fast, that's what you do.
There you go. We just cured insomnia.
Yeah.
All right, Janet on YouTube. Oh, we just lost Janet. Let's see. There's one more. And great, if there are any more questions, we're wrapping up here. And definitely, if you're looking this after the fact, there's that 818 number. You can give Zoran a call, and they'll be able to answer your questions. Here's Janet's question. How do I find a reliable plumber to address a water heater needing a permit? So I did mention the contractors and vendors, that search engine. Those are people that are advertising there are ones that are they specialize or they're looking to do business with people who own rental property. Mm-hmm. So go to the search engine, just type in plumbing or water heaters, and you'll get some response. You'll get a few different leads there. Check them out and look at their Google reviews. Look at listen to them, see them come out and how they deal with you, and make a decision there, and just know that if they do something wrong with you, let us know and we'll try to correct that with them. All right, here we go. Next one. Does retrofit window installation require a permit?
Good question. Depends who you ask. Crazy, right? Every window, whether it's a retrofit or new installation, needs to be permitted via the building inspections on the building and safety. Housing, interesting. So they've taken a step back from following the guidelines of the municipal code through the LA inspectors, building inspectors. They're saying we won't require an inspection permit for that installation, the retrofit windows. So I would get that regardless, because you don't know. You're not going to install it yourself. And if you are, good for you. You're going to do it right. And but if you hire somebody, which you probably going to do, I would get a permit for that from LADBS and window retrofit change out. You identify the windows, do it through them. So the person doing the work, you don't have to sit over their shoulder to make sure they've secured and sealed that installation from the outside and the inside, because that's what you're talking about, keeping water from the outside from coming in and sealing so the air gap and so forth that's going to be trying to squeeze in during wind conditions inside your house. So get a permit, be protected. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Zoran, for sharing with us literally decades of experience and all those pictures. It's so great to see it. And I think we all have new eyes now, or a lot of us, we have new eyes to see things that we may not have seen before. And that's exactly what the purpose of this was. And hope you can catch those other two parts. And Mike Brennan, excuse me, we'll get that posted in the AOA member portal within the next couple of days here, hopefully. And anyway, thanks again. And then remember, 1 o'clock today, we have yet another live stream, and you can ask an attorney questions. He'll be presenting specifically about LA eviction moratoriums, collecting the rent debt. And anyway, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.